In the blink of an eye, everything changed. What initially seemed like a bold tactic to protect national jobs turned into a warning sign for the entire global economy. When Tesla, the brightest emblem of American innovation, decided to shut down its production lines in the United States and move them to Canada, millions of people felt a deep chill. It was not just a business move, but the moment we understood that something huge and crucial was crumbling. From Michigan to Indiana, from deserted factories to dealerships without customers, the American industrial dream is fading. As a resident of the American Midwest, I can say this is not just news. It is the daily reality we face. Under the slogan, "Tariffs will bring jobs back," the Trump administration imposed severe tariffs on Canada and Mexico, but the outcome was completely opposite to what was promised. Tesla, facing an immediate increase of $300 million in operating costs because of these tariffs, could not sustain its production on U.S. soil. In just a few days, the company's stock value plummeted by 20%, wiping out billions in capitalization. Investors panicked. Experts began to talk about an industrial crisis, and uncertainty took hold in every corner of the automotive industry. The local effects were devastating. In my community, factories that once buzzed with activity now remain closed, secured with rusted chains. Workers with decades of experience were left unemployed overnight, with no answers or clear plans. Cafes, auto parts stores, and small businesses that depended on that steady flow of industrial wages also began to close. What's most worrying is that no one seems to offer a concrete solution. Economic policy specialists warn that this is not a temporary adjustment. According to reports from TD Economics and Goldman Sachs, the average price of new cars has risen between $5,000 and $15,000 per unit due to the tariffs. Who can afford a new car now? For many families, even considering a loan for a vehicle is a luxury out of reach. Meanwhile, Canada sees the opportunity. With government incentives and cheap hydroelectric power, it not only attracted Tesla but positioned Quebec as the new epicenter of battery production for electric vehicles, the once promised future of the U.S. clean industry. Progress quietly flourishes north of the border, and what began as America First has turned, according to some analysts, into Abandoned America. But the most disturbing thing is not what has already been lost, but what might come. What if Tesla was only the first domino to fall? What if this marks the start of a broader corporate exodus to countries with more stable policies? Because if the flagship of American clean technology abandons ship, who will be next? The repercussions of Tesla's exit are not limited to factories or financial markets. They have echoed like a shockwave in the heart of every city that once thrived with the constant roar of an assembly line. In states like Ohio, Indiana, and especially Michigan, industrial paralysis is evident. The streets where thousands of workers once ended their shifts are now silent and deserted. Car dealerships are saturated with stock but lack customers, while local communities face what many describe as a functional collapse. What worsens this situation is that it is not just the closure of one plant, but a chain reaction affecting the entire sector. Following Tesla's impact, companies like Stellantis halted operations and laid off hundreds of employees. According to data confirmed by Cox Automotive, each car made in the U.S. today costs an additional $6,000 just due to tariff-related overheads, and imported cars are up to $15,000 more expensive. The automotive market is becoming an inaccessible luxury for millions of middle-class families already facing high rents, difficult mortgages, and inflated food prices. The promise of a reliable family vehicle has been replaced by impossible payments and suffocating interest rates. Beyond the economic impact, America's identity as an industrial power is at stake. The blow is not limited to factories but affects the entire ecosystem: suppliers, transportation, dealerships, logistics, advertising, and even specialized media. According to TDI Economics, car sales could drop by 10.6% annually, dangerously approaching levels seen only during the worst financial crisis of 2008. The images in dealerships seem taken from a strange dream: rows of new cars covered in dust, salespeople with arms crossed waiting for customers who never come, and managers drafting early termination letters. Meanwhile, in the halls of power, the debate grows more intense. Some advocates of tariff policy claim it is a necessary process to deglobalize the economy and regain internal control. However, economists and international observers warn that this strategy is having the opposite effect. Instead of strengthening American industry, it is weakening it against more agile and better-positioned competitors. Meanwhile, Tesla struggles not only with its own losses in the U.S., but also with an unexpected collapse in its carbon credit revenues. When the Trump administration eliminated emission incentives, Tesla lost a key revenue stream of $2.8 billion. This measure, far from symbolic, stripped the company of one of its financial pillars, leaving it even more vulnerable amid the storm. International markets noticed. In Europe, and especially in China, Tesla's reputation began to deteriorate until it was seen less as a clean energy icon and more as a political actor linked to unpopular decisions. Has the association with divisive policies begun to exact a price that transcends borders? From the perspective of the average American citizen, what is happening with Tesla and the automotive sector in general is not just a business crisis but a paradigm shift that threatens to redefine America's role in the global economy. Whereas in the past we were seen as the engine of innovation, now it seems we are trapped in a spiral of political decisions that undermine our own strengths. Here is where the deepest impact reveals itself, not in headlines, but in the homes of millions of families who feel the promise of the American dream crumble. The elimination of carbon incentives, a measure celebrated by some sectors as a victory against environmental bureaucracy, turned out to be a grave mistake. Tesla relied on that market to cushion fluctuations in its sales, and with that income gone, the company lost stability just when it needed it most. However, it was not just a financial loss but a symbol of how seemingly technical decisions can have geopolitical consequences. In China, where Tesla had a solid growth base, discontent was immediate. The perceived association between Elon Musk and the Trump administration sparked open rejection, and sales began to decline. In markets where political neutrality is vital for consumers, Tesla's image as a U.S. brand shifted from being an asset to becoming a liability. Meanwhile, Canada was playing its own masterstroke. Historically considered just another province in the northern industrial gear, Quebec has started to transform into a global center for battery production. With an incentive package reaching $2 billion and access to one of the cleanest and most economical power grids in the world, it attracted Tesla's most ambitious project, the 4,680 cells. What was once the future of electric mobility in U.S. territory now beats strongly on Canadian soil. But Tesla is not alone in this bet. According to reports from Bloomberg and Reuters, giants like Walmart, Coca-Cola, Heineken, and Campbell Soup are moving key parts of their supply chains to Canada, seeking stability in modern infrastructure and a more predictable regulatory environment. Some experts describe this phenomenon as a silent economic earthquake, a redistribution of power that does not happen with crashes, but with strategic decisions that accumulate over time. The consequences are already tangible. Inflation has risen an additional 2.3%, according to Commerce Department data, representing an increase of $3,800 annually for the average family. At the same time, the U.S. gross domestic product has fallen by 0.25%. With estimates warning of even more severe losses if Mexico and Canada impose trade retaliations. All this leads to an uncomfortable reality. Tariff policies designed to protect jobs are instead contributing to the disintegration of the industrial fabric that once sustained the United States. The Brookings Institution report is clear. More than 177,000 jobs have disappeared directly due to the 25% tariffs. And if you add the retaliations from trading partners, that number could exceed 400,000 lost positions. Factory closures are just the beginning of the impact, which extends to the very confidence of the population. Parents selling their homes, young people postponing college, and entire families relocating to states with a lower cost of living. This is no longer just about economic cycles, but a total redesign of everyday life. Production chains have turned into chains of uncertainty. What was once America's comparative advantage, a strong industry, a stable middle class, and confidence in the future, is being eroded by policies that, although well-intentioned, seem to have overlooked the complexities of global trade. Meanwhile, countries that once admired us now watch cautiously, wondering if the United States truly understands the interdependent economy it helped build. Can we continue to lead the world if we can't even maintain our own industries? Walking through closed factories, empty storefronts, and ghost towns in the industrial belt, one question becomes inevitable. If we can no longer even keep Tesla on U.S. soil, how deep will the impending collapse be? What began as an economic adjustment, driven by the promise to protect the working class, has become a structural crisis that jeopardizes not only jobs but also the place the United States holds in the global economic order. The evidence is clear and undeniable. Recent projections indicate that car sales could plummet by more than 2,500,000 units by 2025. This is not simply a slowdown, but a collapse comparable to the worst moments of the Great Recession. And the impact is not limited to the automotive sector. Supply chains are being hit from within. From steel to semiconductors, between 41% and 50% of the components used in car manufacturing come from abroad. By imposing tariffs without having a prepared national network to meet demand, what has been achieved is to strangle our own manufacturers with additional costs they cannot absorb. This is where the America First narrative begins to crumble under its own weight. By trying to punish external suppliers, we are actually harming ourselves, and Tesla is the most visible example of this contradiction. What hurts the most is not Tesla's departure, but knowing that many other companies are already packing their bags. Companies that operated in our country for decades are moving their operations to Canada, Mexico, and even Eastern Europe, attracted by governments that guarantee stability, skilled labor, and reliable trade agreements. According to the Economic Policy Institute, these changes could mean an additional loss of up to $75 billion in gross domestic product by 2025, along with an inflation increase of between 1.3% and 3%. In practical terms, this translates into less investment, fewer jobs, and more pressure on American families. And no, this is not alarmism, but the reality many of us face every day. I have seen friends forced to leave their small homes, entrepreneurs closing workshops passed down through generations, and young people moving to other states or even abroad seeking new opportunities. What is at stake is no longer just a fiscal issue or a partisan disagreement, but the economic model that has defined this nation for over a century. The most worrying part is that while the United States is paralyzed by its own protectionism, other nations are advancing rapidly. Canada has not only won Tesla, but is consolidating itself as a leader in clean energy, cutting-edge batteries, and logistics chains that once belonged to us. Europe strengthens its trade alliances, and Asia adapts very quickly. Meanwhile, we continue debating tariffs that suffocate more than they protect. As a citizen, it is frustrating to see how every political decision, no matter how justified it may seem in theory, has real consequences that those who make them rarely assume. Workers are the ones who pay the cost, families face uncertainty, and the most painful thing is feeling that the country that once promised to be a land of opportunity